Hey Ringside Crew. Welcome to the internationally known Dudes at Ringside Podcast. And now here's your host, Joe Panther III.
Hello there, wrestling fans. Welcome to another episode, a part 2 episode of the internationally known Dudes at Ringside Podcast. I am Joe Panther III, and Ringside Crew, I had this awesome wrestler on last year. She's been blowing up the wrestling trail. Let's give a warm Dudes at Ringside welcome back to my friend Norris, the God Queen. Welcome back.
What up, God Queen in the house? Thank you so much for having me back on.
Oh my gosh, it's such an honor when you said, when are you available? I was like, God Queen wants to talk to me again?
Yeah, how's things been over here at Dudes at Ringside Podcast? How's it going?
It's going good. I've been interviewing a lot of interesting characters from everybody from the legendary Mickey Knuckles to like Randy West. I had him on the podcast last year. It's just been absolutely insane. Now the podcast is 4 years running. It's building something that as a little boy, when we're recording this episode, my grandfather, would be his 38th year gone from this planet. And Jose Quinones, the Panther, my grandfather, which wrestled in the 50s and 60s, he is the key. He's my pallbearer to the Undertaker. He's the person that gave me that absolute love of professional wrestling. I never met the man, but like I could feel his spirit anytime I was sitting in my living room as a little boy, not knowing what that cold feeling about behind me was. It was him over my shoulder, whispering in my ear, saying, "This is the business. You will love it. You're gonna learn it. You're gonna learn it and love it, and not even know why you love it. It's going to be something that's part of your life that's going to make you love it. And then one day you're going to be known because of it, not stepping in the ropes, but helping people." And that's
Hey
what I
man,
do.
that's pro wrestling. Pro wrestling like draws people in. It's something that people become really passionate and fall in love with. It's just such a unique form of entertainment and a sport in itself.
Oh, yep. So, what have you been up to since the last time we were in the studios, God Queen?
Well, I don't know if you saw, but I am now a two-time world featherweight women's champion. Yeah.
Amazing.
I also have the Immortal Women's Championship belt. That's the promotion from upstate New York, Immortal Championship Wrestling. I did win that from Christina Marie by pinning none other than Evilise in a triple threat match. First time wrestling Evilise. She's such a badass. So, and growing up watching wrestling, I watched Lucha Underground while I was training. That was such a surreal moment for me, like getting in the ring with her. She's such a sweetheart.
Yeah, it's awesome to see you're like coming over. You set upstate New York, and as you know, I always tell you I'm from Pennsylvania, and I go to PPW in Slatington, PA, and I gotta say, you versus Sammy Chaos would be a 10-star. I'm gonna go more than 5. I'm gonna say 10-star match and steal the main event. Maybe even, hey Paul, book God Queen against Sammy Chaos and make it the main event. And then make it a crazy ass match. I need to see this match. I
I
need to
have
see.
wrestled Sammy Chaos twice now. So our first match was up in Maine, and we had like we kind of like dipped our toes in wrestling each other, kind of felt each other out. And I had such a great time. I was like, fuck yeah, let's do that again. So I actually, when I had the title for Immortal, uh, one of the first people I wanted to wrestle was Sammy Chaos. I was like, you know what, bring her in. Like, we could do some great things with her. So I got to wrestle her for the Immortal Championship, which I successfully defended. But no, she's honestly like adore her. She's gonna be great. You know, she's only like a year into her in-ring stuff, like performing, and I feel like she's just gonna get crispier and crispier as time goes on.
Mm. I've also noticed that you're dipping your toe in the deathmatch scene now with doing like like bloody matches. What does it feel now to be like have dipping your toe into that deathmatch like world?
I do want to say that it's not so much deathmatch as it is like hardcore stipulation.
Oh,
And I do
okay.
have to say that because I'm friends with Akira, and he would actually like shove me in a locker if he heard me say that I was a deathmatch wrestler.
Oh no, sorry. Sorry for
Yeah,
you
yeah.
to do that to
No,
my friend.
it's all love. It's all love. I do bug him because I have done like a couple of like hardcore stuff now, and I'm like, oh, you know me, you're just gonna be the next deathmatch queen. And he's like, actually, shut up. I will fight you. He's like, get in a ring with me, and then you can call yourself that. I'm like, you're right, sir. Okay, I'm gonna go stand over there in that corner.
Yeah,
But yeah, full disclosure, not deathmatch. I can't say deathmatch because that would be disrespectful to the deathmatch wrestlers. But I
I
am.
apologize, God Queen. I was just like,
No,
I saw that and I'm like, I gotta ask her about it, but I gotta ask her in a
yeah,
certain way that doesn't sound like she's doing it. But in my brain, it came out like kind of like, like the
no,
little
it's
kid in
you're
the class
totally
going, "She."
totally valid saying that, but I can't agree with it because, like, out of respect to the deathmatch wrestlers, I do enjoy that style. Like I do enjoy like the hardcore style. I'm someone who grew up, and I know everyone like nags on it, but I grew up watching the Attitude Era. Like that was the first era of wrestling I was exposed to as a kid, as a 5 year old. I don't know what my parents were thinking, but that's what I was just like exposed to early on. And so I love the weapons, and I love using that when it like makes a story so much better. Recently, like I got to have a last sister standing match with Ashley Box, who's my real life sister, who is
Hmm.
my tag partner when we broke out into the business together. And like, it's not so much about like, oh, cool, they're using weapons and like, girls can do it too. That wasn't the story. The story was we hate each other this much that we're willing to go to this level to hurt each other so that way the person can't get up for a 10 count. It's like, how much hate can you have for someone who's supposed to be your sister? And it really does like bring an emotional level to the story. A lot of people did say like that was such an emotional match to watch. And it was just a brutal war. We went 25 minutes in this last sister standing match,
Wow.
beat the tar out
Wow.
of each other.
It was almost like the Kane and Undertaker, like you know what I mean, God Queen. It's like almost like the Kane and Undertaker story. They're
Yeah,
brothers, but they hate each other.
it was
Like,
the most brutal pillow fight that we have ever had because we have had a couple. So that's what it was.
ooh. So how many different weapons do you guys think you used in that match?
Oh, not enough because you can't like you can't overuse things. There's a point where you're using a weapon and you're creating a moment with it versus like just hitting someone with a weapon for the sake of hitting someone with a weapon. And I feel like I go for the first where I'm like, there's a reason why I'm using this. There's a reason why I'm setting it up. There's a reason why I'm like, you know, teasing this or implementing it. Um, I will say I am jealous. Ashley took the barbed wire. I wanted to take the barbed wire.
Aw.
Yeah.
It's like I wanted to do that, but my sister had to take the awkward bump. Like,
Must be not. How dare you?
yeah. It- like I noticed like you with your gear, like you have different gear for all different types of so but my question is there a separate suitcase for just gear? And then you have like your merch and stuff like that in another suitcase?
Yeah, I have like a little tote that I carry my merch to with me for shows. So that way when I get to a show, like, I'm one of my best friends is Perry Von Vicious, and his thing when he gets to a show, the first thing he does is he sets up his merch because he's a professional wrestler. And so now that's like my thing. I like have to yell it in my head when I get to a show. Is like the first thing I do is, well, I start my vlog and I'm like, what's up, vlog? We made it to the show. And then I'm like, all right, I got to set up the merch because
Oh,
that's important. You know, that's part of the job.
yeah.
So I do have my tote, so it makes it easier. And then my gear bag is like, you know, my gear bag and like spare clothes if I need it.
Mm. So, is there any particular gear that you like try to use more than the others?
Um, Honestly, anytime I have new gear, I like wearing that stuff more. It's like, ooh, this is my favorite gear. Anytime I have a new set of gear, I'm like, nah, I want to wear this one. I
Mm.
get sick of all the other sets of gear. Um, I'm like really bad when it comes to like sticking to a specific gear style. Like I will make a set and I'll probably do like 4 colors in that set or 3 colors in that set. And then I get sick of it and then I change it up again. So
Mm.
I'm not someone who has like a signature look outside of like a top and bottoms.
So you make your own gear, or is that like a certain person that you trust to make your gear?
I make my own gear just because I'm very impulsive when it comes to like colors and like styles. Like if I want something, I'll want it in that moment. So
Mm.
I'll make it within like 2 weeks. So that way I could be like, okay. Like usually for me, it's like if I want something, it's, oh, I want it right now for this show that's coming up. And a lot of people tend to think that they can do that to gear makers and be like, hey, can you have the set of gear for me done in these 2 weeks? And it's like they have lives. So
Oh,
I don't
jeez.
want to I don't want to burden anyone with my like ADHD and my impulsiveness of like, oh, I'd be really sick to have like, you know, Leonardo gear for this next show.
Oh
Like
God.
that would just be so annoying to them and be like, oh, cool. Yeah, except you're not getting it. And then
Oh,
I would be
jeez.
frustrated and like it just takes out the middleman.
Like, I I've been watching a lot of like old school like, wrestling stuff from like WWF and like superstars. Have you ever gone back and like watched any old wrestling stuff for like Memphis or like WCW or like WWF, and you see that gear and you're like, I want to do that, but to make it like a female's gear.
That's actually my next set of gear. That's weird that
Ooh.
you said that. My next set of gear, which I'm
I'm an
currently working
artist.
on.
I'm an artist,
Yeah,
God
what the
Queen,
heck?
and I have
Um,
ADD, friend. That's what it is.
that's I feel that. My next set of gear is gonna be like Von Erich's base. So I have the cursive initials for myself on the back. I do like the classic look. Like I love like just like a plain color tights or trunks and then their initials. I loved
Mm.
how gear looked back then. And like if you just like put like 3 colors, you know how they do like with the 4 pillars? They have like the
Yeah.
shirt. It's like you know that's the 4 pillars from just the colors. Like
Mm.
I love that gear look like that back then. I hate all like the different like layers nowadays and all the different like accessories on stuff. Um, but I get why. It's because it's like everyone has to try to look different, you know. But now it all looks the same, and it's
So
overwhelming.
I got a funny question for you. If I became a wrestler,
Yes.
what would you make my gear? Like what would my gear be like? Because you see the polo. Would you make me like a shirt that's like it comes off like almost like a robe or a jacket? Or would this be part of my gear, like the shirt?
I feel like you would have to be someone who's wearing like trunks, black boots. Your knee pads would have to be like lower the way Ric Flair wore them, and then
Yeah.
you would come out to the ring with your polo tucked into your trunks.
Because I look like an utter nerd every time I'm wearing my glasses during the shows.
Yeah, yeah. But your character isn't always who you are. So your character would think you're cool. You know, you would come out with your polo, you would get to the apron, pop the collar, and then get in the ring. And so the start of the match, you keep your polo on, and then eventually the good guy like beats the tar out of you, and they take the polo off and chop you, and that's when the crowd goes nuts. You know,
That's
that's the gimmick.
utter. You're gonna laugh, God Queen. I've been asking wrestlers like, if you see me at shows, I want to take a chop from a wrestler.
That's a very popular thing.
But I'm
Of
scared that it's gonna end with my dad going, "Randy, you okay?" Or they taking the smelling salt by the nose, and I'm just like, huh? "What happened?" Like,
well, you know, wrestlers take it very seriously if you ask them to chop you. So Just start off light and work your way up.
But it's funny. It's always the wrestler that I want to do it. All the wrestlers like don't do that. Like it would be. I would ask maybe Sammy Chaos, but then that would be end of Joe life. It'd be Reese picture of me like this, and it's just like the day I was born, the day I died.
Well, the guys you want to ask, if you want to ask guys who will actually do it, Anthony Green, Rip Bison, probably. Oh, let me see. Who else is like some of the hardest choppers in the game right now? Manders.
Oh, jeez.
Those guys will do it.
Oof. So, is there like, do you have a dartboard at your house that has like places you've been in the country so far?
Not anymore. I used to in my old room, back at my mom's house. I used to have like a little map, and then I would write the initials, but not anymore. I don't know. I feel like I stopped after I moved out just because I didn't want to move it out of there. And I keep thinking of like going back to it, but that would require me to think.
Oh, gee. Oh, gosh.
Which I haven't done. Yeah, I gotta do it.
All these bum stuff I've taken over these years of being in wrestling. Gotta remember where I've been. Like, great.
I feel like I don't know. I don't want to, because then I'm gonna be sad if I don't have some states.
Oh, you gotta come to PA. Definitely gotta come to PA.
I've been to PA. See, that's the thing is I've been to like everywhere.
But have you been to like? I know you said PA, but it was probably like in Philly or Pittsburgh, probably, right?
I've wrestled in Pittsburgh. I've wrestled in Philly. I've wrestled in the furthest depth of Pennsylvania that people would not want to go. One of them was like, yeah. I like wrestled like past Amish country.
Oh, like, I know where that is.
I don't like. It was a 9-hour drive for me. I was going from Rhode Island, and that was back when like no one booked you. Like, so I went where I got booked. Well, like the indies were so much different like 10 years ago. There wasn't that many places, so you went where they would book you. I would go to Canada 10 hours just to like wrestle.
Yeah, and it's funny. You say Canada, and the way I learned about you is through George McKee. George and his daughter. That's the way I learned about you. And I was like, this God Queen seems so cool. I have to book her. Like, you came on the podcast and made my day and made my year by having you on. So with this being my 4-year anniversary of being a podcaster, like for you coming on a podcast, because I know you probably go on many podcasts, does it feel differently coming on this podcast? I know I hate doing that to people, but like coming on this one, like I try not to ask the same Jane questions and everything with that. You get most wrestlers, so you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the first time I was on, it was like we like fast forwarded through the basic questions, but then it was just a conversation. And this time, because it's the second time, it's just like been strictly conversation at this point.
Yeah, it's like for me, I watch podcasts and I take note of what people do, and it's my one rule in podcasting, and you're gonna be like, that's pretty good. I never want anybody to feel intimidated, and I never want anybody to feel like this is going to be the interview that makes them hate podcasts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you. I feel like a lot of people do hate podcasts in general, though, because of the fact that maybe they're just not podcast people. Like, they don't, like, watch media, or I guess it's listen to media of podcasting. Yeah. I'm someone who, like, I'll actively listen to different podcasts, and I'll go through phases of what podcasts I listen to. So for me, at least, I like understand the art of it.
So when you're traveling around, do you go to, I don't know if I asked you this last time, do you go to the local chain to get like your morning grub if you're there early, or do you try to go to the Dunkies or the Starbucks to get your morning grub?
This is gonna sound so sad, If I am flown in somewhere, I will go from the airport, I'll go from the shuttle, I'll go from the hotel. From the hotel, I'll go to the venue. And that is my day until I'm done at the show, and then I go to the hotel, and then I go to the airport.
Oh, wow.
So if I'm flown anywhere, I don't, yeah, I don't have a window to like eat like the local cuisine because we're wrestling and like there's only so much that your stomach's gonna not get like irritated by when you have to wrestle. So I don't risk it. I'll eat something like maybe like a sandwich or like I don't know like a Rice Krispie treat or like something small or tiny. But I try not to eat anything crazy. If I'm driving to a show, it's honestly just like gas station stuff. Like I always get an energy drink, and then I don't even like if I get something to eat. There's so much that you have to stay away from because yeah, you're wrestling. Like you can't do fruits. You would think you could do fruits because that's healthy, but it's all fiber, so it's gonna make you like gassy and bloated, and you're gonna fart during your match.
Yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah. So what I've been doing if I'm driving is I'll get the eggs from the gas station, and I'll just eat the egg white part. I won't eat the yellow, and then I'll get like there's like overnight oats, so I'll eat some of that. That's what I eat. I won't even eat my protein bar until after my match because again, it has like different things that'll make you bloated and make you fart, and you
Oh,
can't fart in your
jeez.
match. I mean, you could if you want, like if you don't care about your wrestling, but the bloating part is not fun. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't want that. I've heard too many stories of wrestlers during matches farting, and it's like, I can't. I'm not gonna say the person's name, but they talked about it. Forgot her name, and she was like a Viking character, and she was in WWE, and she used to fart on wrestlers during matches.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I can't think of her name, but it's horrible that I remember that one thing about her. She farted on other wrestlers. I'm like, that's just disgusting. Like, girl, you nasty, but I understand. You eat nasty food before, the food that they give you before the show. Like they're like, oh, here's some burgers, here's mac and cheese, knowing that stuff will absolutely ruin your stomach before a show.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought of another wrestler. I don't know if you ever been in a show or been around her, Danny Moe.
Yeah, Danny Moe.
Love her. Such a nice person. Such a sweet person. Like every time I see her, she's like, hey. And I'm like, hey.
Yeah, she's a doll.
Yeah. I made her sound like Kermit there, but I'm just getting my voice back because I had a nasty cold like right after New Year's Eve, and it affected my voice. And I can't even go like for a while. God Queen, I couldn't even do my long international. I was like, and then I cut it and then do the rest of the
Oh
words. I
yeah.
was like,
Now that you mentioned it, I can hear it a little.
yeah, it's still scratchy a little bit. The girls at work kind of say, it makes your podcast sound different, Joe. It sounds all scratchy. And I'm like, no, make me sound not like me. So, when it comes to like your merch, do you like how many different t-shirts do you have?
I try to only stick with like 2 designs at a time. So 2 for the table. I know I have like probably 5 designs on Pro Wrestling Tees. If anyone ever checks Pro Wrestling Tees, I'll put like some on there and just like try to rotate them out.
If my fans want to follow you on social media, like where can they find you?
I have Twitter. Oh, we call it X now. I have X, I have Instagram, and I have TikTok. It's at Demi Exo. And then I do have a YouTube channel where I post some vlogs. You can follow me on there. It's Demi Exo as well. That's EXO, not XO, like hugs and kisses.
Awesome. Tell me if like before we go, Do you have any crazy stories from the ring other than your sister's story? Like, is anything else?
Crazy stories from the ring. Ooh.
Nothing bad. Nothing like a match that you'd be
Oh,
like,
I know. I was like, oh.
nothing like that.
Man, you put me on the spot here. Let me think. Oh, I did have the great experience of watching them make honey at the last MLW show that we were at.
Oh
They
wow,
did
okay.
they did a pool filled with honey, and so I watched as they were trying to make sure that this honey looked like it was like a lot more liquid in there than it was, and it was actual honey. So there was a moment where I was thinking, thank God that's not me, but it was my friend BRG, Brett Ryan Goslin, who ended up going into the batch of honey and then getting a bunch of feathers dumped onto him.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Yeah,
Tell me, I
definitely
want
go
to
check
thank.
out that match.
Yeah, you definitely have to check that out. I have to get when this podcast airs, you'll have to send me the link so I could share that link for that match on YouTube, so everybody could go check it out because that sounds like that's a really crazy match. Tell me, I want to thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. Um, before we go, if there was any kids that like 18 to 19-year-old, like teens, young adults that are just getting into the business, like they're starting their first few days at training, what kind of advice would you have for them?
I'm going to give the advice that I always give, and I know I'm going to be like a broken record with this, but stay hungry and stay humble.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I am Joe Parent the Third. This is...
I'm Demi Exo, the God Queen.
And we will catch you in the next one.